Ooh, legendary and mythical Pokemon, which are the ones that are the most worth raiding for? Well, today we will find that out together, as there are a total of 55 legendary and mythical Pokemon that has ever been released to Pokemon GO since the year 2017. Alright, so hi to all of you guys! So let me go ahead and bring my screen up, and I'm going to show you guys under my storage over here. I've labeled a handful of Pokemon, and we're going to talk about them being useful in PvE situation and PvP situation. First of all, if you guys do not know what PvE stands for, it means player versus environment, meaning in raids or in fact against people in the gyms. Whereas for PvP is player versus player, basically Go Battle League or playing basically the Team Go, Rocket Grunts, etc. So there are a total of 55 tier 5 raid bosses ever since the year 2017 that happened in the month of July till now that has ever been released to Pokemon GO, and all these are the ones that are available or were available in raids, and I reckon they will come back in the future again. So I'm not going to mention about, you know, Mew, Jirachi, Victini, etc. because those you can only get one, and you probably wouldn't have a chance to raid them. But there's a chance we may be able to raid something like Zarud because Hoopa was available in raids already. So you guys can see there's so many Pokemon to look at, so many to raid for, but are all of them worth raiding for? The answer is a big fat no. Why? Is because it depends on whether do you play PvP or not. It depends on whether do you want to raid harder and raid better also. So it depends on the kind of Pokemon that you actually want to go after. So starting off from Articuno all the way to the very last generation available to us right now, and that is Zamazenta, the Sword and Shield. We're gonna go through each and every one of them. Just kidding, there will be no time if I were to go through every single one of them. So let's just jump straight to the part where I'm going to talk about the ones that are useful for PvE. So player versus environment, I've listed down a total of 15. Why all these 15? Well, let's check out the first generation one, that goes to Zapdos. Zapdos being a very good electric type Pokemon. If you have the Shadow form, great. It's actually one of the top 3 Shadow electric type attackers in the game currently, and I would really recommend you to get it with Thunder Shock and also in fact Thunderbolt. Unfortunately the moves has changed because I used it for PvP, etc. also. Next one is going to be Moltres, Shadow Moltres to be exact, because as a flying and fire typing attacker, it's currently number 1 as a flying type attacker, but number 2 behind of Reshiram. But if you talk about the Shadow form, it is still stronger than Reshiram, but in the future when Reshiram gets its Shadow form, then that's when it will lose to the, you know, I guess the Shadow Reshiram. Next one is going to be the holy grail of all Pokemon, where I do not need to say much about this. It's the number 1 psychic type Pokemon in the entire game, and that's none other than Mewtwo, Shadow Mewtwo to be exact, with Confusion and Side Strike. But you can also have Shadow Ball, you will still be a very good Ghost type attacker without any same type attack bonus at all. Next one is going to be Raikou. Raikou in the Shadow form is also really good, especially with Thunder Shock and Wild Charge. Now I'm using Volt Switch. Volt Switch also works in certain situations. You can use Volt Switch and Wild Charge also. And with the Shadow form, it's actually one of the best electric type Pokemon out there to use in raids, especially even better than Zapdos. So the next one is going to be Entei, Shadow Entei. I'm not showing you guys the Shadow form because I want to show you guys the one that's the non-Shadow form. So in the future, you guys can know which one to actually raid after. And Entei with Fire Spin and Flamethrower, you know, in the Shadow form is one of the strongest. It's actually still top 3 for now, and I would really recommend you guys to actually raid it if it actually comes back in the future also. It's really good for even PvP and Go Battle League. And not Go Battle League for grunts purpose, not Go Battle League say wrongly, but it's basically grunt purposes. Alright, next one is going to be Kyogre. Kyogre is a monster, alright. Recently it just got its primal form, and having Waterfall and Surf, it's good in certain situations, but also having Origin Pulse is also good in certain situations. I didn't say Orange Pulse, I said Origin Pulse. Alright, in case you guys wondered if I said Orange Pulse. But anyway, Origin Pulse, you know, if the Kyogre doesn't get one-shot KO by something like a Primal Groudon, then the Surf is actually better. But if it does get, you know, one-hit KO by it, I'm sorry, the Surf is better if it gets one-hit KO. But if it doesn't get one-hit KO, then the Origin Pulse is better. I'm so sorry, guys. My mind is a bit fuzzy today. So the next one is going to be Groudon. Groudon is definitely something that you really want to go after, because in the Shadow form in the future, it will be number 1, especially with the new signature move, Precipice Blade. And it's going to be even better than Shadow Excadrill in the future and Shadow Mamoswine also. So this is something that I really recommend going after. And and stock up the Candy XL and whatever resources you need to get. Next one is definitely the king of all dragons, Rayquaza. There'll be a Mega form, and when the Shadow form comes also, it will be the #1 dragon. Yeah, it will be the #1 dragon until I guess Black Kyurem gets its Shadow form, which we are not sure when is that going to happen, but in the Mega form, Rayquaza is going to be really strong. Alright, next one is going to be Giratina as one of the best Ghost Legendary Pokemon. And with Shadow Claw, Shadow Ball, you can actually use it as a very good and strong Ghost type attacker. I'm just waiting for the Shadow form to be out, and that's when it will be upgraded again. Next one is going to be Darkrai. Darkrai does not have a signature move yet, but Dark Void, when it gets its signature move, it will become even stronger. And also when it gets Shadow form, it will probably be the #1 Dark type attacker in the game. Maybe even stronger than Hydreigon, Shadow Hydreigon in the future. But to get a multiple, of Shadow forms of a certain mythical or legendary Pokemon, that is the challenge that a lot of us would face. Next Pokemon is going to be Terrakion. Terrakion is a Pokemon that I didn't really focus on to upgrade because well, I've already powered up a total of 6 level 50 Shadow Machamps. I didn't want to upgrade my fighting type team, but if you guys want to, you guys can focus on Terrakion in the future. It's a very good fighting type attacker right now since it has access to Double Kick and also Sacred Sword, which are both really good moves for Terrakion. Next Pokemon that I will actually recommend is going to be Thundurus in the incarnate form. Yeah, this is the incarnate form, right? I keep forgetting which one is it, but basically it's this form. The incarnate form, the Tyrant form, I'm sorry, the Tyrant form. Alright, the Tyrant form. And with Volt Switch and Thunderbolt, is actually one of the best electric type attacker out there, but still loses to Zekrom right now because Zekrom just recently got a buff with Fusion Bolt, though having Wild Charge was really very strong. Alright, next Pokemon that I recommend is actually Reshiram. Reshiram being a fire type attacker is actually very strong with Fire Fang and Fusion Flare. And I'm just waiting for the Shadow form to be out, and when that's out, it's going to be the #1 fire type attacker out there. Even stronger than Shadow Darmanitan, but the problem is it's going to be very hard to get multiple Shadow Reshirams. So next one is going to be Zekrom. Zekrom being a very good electric type attacker also. I would recommend getting it, of course, with Charge Beam and not a Dragon Breath. This is what I use for PvP also. So I really recommend going after this in the future when it comes back. Next one is going to be Landorus, the Tyrant form. Alright, the Tyrant form is the one that you really want to go after, and this one, when it gets its Shadow form, you'll be one of the best ground type attacker, but still loses to Precipice Blade Groudon, I believe so. Yep. So that's that for all the PvE Pokemon that I really recommend for you guys to focus on in the future. Of course, there'll be newer Pokemon that will come in the future, which I will not talk about now, but when they actually do appear back into raids again, or should I say back to raids for the first time, I'll actually tell you guys which one to actually focus on also. Alright, so next one we're going to talk about PvP though. So PvP, we have a lot of Pokemon to talk about, but we're going to talk about the Great Lake one first, because the Great Lake one definitely is going to be much easier to talk about. We have a total of 28 Pokemon to talk about, but let's talk about Great Lake first. So Great Lake, there are a total of 7 that I would recommend using, but not all of them are really awesome. So the first one is going to be Articuno. Articuno is pretty decent, especially with access to Icy when it debuffs the opponent's attack. So that's really good. It's a guaranteed debuff, and that's great. Next one is going to be Zapdos. Zapdos with Thunder Shock, not Charge Beam, sorry. Didn't change the fast move though, but Thunder Shock is a legacy move, so you have to actually use an elite fast team on it. You can use Thunderbolt also instead of like Ancient Power. Either one works also. And then next one that I'll recommend is also Suicune. And Suicune with Snout and also Ice Beam. And Bubble Beam actually works pretty okay in certain cups, but not in the general Great League. Next Pokemon that I recommend getting if you want to play a bit in the Great League is also Regirock. Regirock with Lock On, Zap Cannon, and also Stone Edge works well, but you can also run Earthquake also, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it has Earthquake. So the next one is going to be Registeel. Registeel with Lock On, Flash Cannon, and Focus Blast works, but the better move to get is actually Zap Cannon with Focus Blast. So that's what you want to get, and Registeel is the rank 1 Pokemon in Ultra League and Great League Open, Great and Ultra League, which is insane. Alright, as for Deoxys, Deoxys is a Pokemon defense form. To be specific, defense form Deoxys is the one that you want to focus on, not the normal attack or speed form. Those three are practically useless. Alright, so I really recommend getting the defense form if you want to get something for the Great League, especially when it has access to counter Psycho Boost and also Rock Slide, Psycho Boost being its signature move. Next Pokemon that I recommend is Cresselia. Cresselia, in order to get it to under 1500 CP, you have to trade with a friend, alright, to actually get it. And you can actually get Grass Knot, which will be a elite. You need to use Elite Charge TM to actually get that move. Alright, next Pokemon is no more already. Those are the 7 that I recommend for Legendary and Mythical Pokemon wise in the Great League. So for Ultra League wise, we have more Pokemon to look at. We have 11 Pokemon to look at. And the first one is going to be Articuno again. So Articuno with Icy Wind Hurricane kind of works, but you also can use Ice Beam or whatsoever. Next Pokemon that I recommend is also Zapdos. Zapdos with Thundershock, Thunderbolt, and Ancient Power is actually pretty good also. Next one is going to be Armored Mewtwo. I know this Pokemon hasn't been out since 2020. It's a long awaited Pokemon. It's a very good Pokemon to use in the Ultra League as it's super duper ultra tanky, and it has access to Side Strike also, so Confusion, Side Strike, and Dynamic Punch, that's the move that you want to use, and it's really useful. Next Pokemon that I recommend is Suicune. Suicune is also pretty tanky in the Ultra League, but it's not really too overly used. Unfortunately, I have mine with Hidden Power, and with Hidden Power, if I were to try and change to get the other moves now, it cannot be relent, so hence why I feel kind of a bit apprehensive to actually remove away the Hidden Power and still keeping it as it is. So the next one is going to be Regirock. Alright, Regirock with Lock On, Earthquake, Earthquake, and also Zap Cannon, and basically Stone Edge, whichever you want to use. It's going to be useful in Ultra League also, especially for certain cups. It's for, yeah, the Registeel, don't need to talk about it. Zap Cannon again. So Deoxys again, same thing, same moves. It's a very tanky Pokemon. I got one with really good IVs. Remember, Deoxys cannot be traded, so technically having IVs like that is actually very good already. So Cresselia also, Cresselia you can actually trade to get lower IVs, which was what I did, to actually power it up to a higher level, and it will be better than one that has like 10 IVs. Alright, and you also can get the Grass Knot, but I did not change mine to Grass Knot because I prefer using this move, to be honest. Alright, next one is Cobalion. Cobalion now has access to Double Kick and Sacred Sword, and it makes it so strong that a lot of people are actually using it also, and it was Pokemon like Alolan Muk like crazy. Alolan Muk practically can't do anything to it, and if you encounter a person who's using Giratina with Dragon Breath, well, you can go to town also, especially if the Giratina is running Dragon Claw and also Ancient Power. Good luck to it, man. Alright, next Pokemon is Verizon. Verizon is also another Pokemon that got Double Kick, and with Double Kick right now, it's actually very strong, especially with access to Leaf Blade and also Stone Edge. So you can actually toggle with either one of those moves, but you need to have Sacred Sword, as it's a very good move to have on Verizon. Next Pokemon is Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini with Water Gun, Surf, and Moonblast. This is a Pokemon that I've used a few times, and I actually like using. It's a very tanky Pokemon, especially with its typing. It actually serves it very well. Next Pokemon that I will recommend is nothing already. Those are the 11 Pokemon that I recommend to you guys for the Ultra League. As for the Master League, well, we have more Pokemon to look at. Great. So now, for Master League, Articuno is still relatively okay, but I wouldn't say it is super duper strong until like a Mamoswine or Shadow Mamoswine level. In fact, Everluck I think is better than Articuno already, so hence I wouldn't really recommend it, but if you want to use it, you can always try. Alright, next one is definitely Mewtwo. Mewtwo is one of the strongest Pokemon to use in the Master League, especially when it has access to like Side Strike, Shadow Ball, and even Focus Blast. You can use Focus Blast instead of Shadow Ball. It still works, but having Psycho Cut is definitely what you want to have and not Confusion. So next Pokemon I recommend is Lugia. Lugia with Dragon Tail, Aero Blast, and also Sky Attack, double flying type charge moves, works really well for this particular very tanky flying Blissey. Alright, and next Pokemon is going to be Ho-Oh, and Ho-Oh is going to be back into raids, and I don't have enough Candy XL to power up to level 50, but I know this Pokemon is very strong, especially with access to Earthquake also. It's, I guess, elite Yamable move. I will definitely try and get it and use it in the Master League and see how it works. Next one is going to be Kyogre. Kyogre is definitely really strong in the Master League, especially with access to a Surf and Thunder, or even Blizzard. You can use Blizzard or Thunder. Sometimes I use Blizzard, sometimes I use Thunder, but it's a very tanky Pokemon. Not a lot of Pokemon can counter this Pokemon very well. Next one is going to be Groudon. Obviously, Groudon having access to Mudshot and Precipice Blade. Now, Precipice Blade is just insane. It's kind of broken to me, and it's so powerful that it requires less energy to use than Earthquake, and it does more damage than Earthquake, which is insane. Alright, next Pokemon that I'll talk about is going to be Rayquaza. Rayquaza now has access to Breaking Swipe, but I did not change mine to Breaking Swipe. With Breaking Swipe, it's actually a pretty decent Dragon type Pokemon right now. It's rank 12 if I'm not mistaken, behind of Dragonite, which is currently still rank 8. But you know, the meta do changes and the ranks would change, but you guys can see with Breaking Swipe, actually Rayquaza actually got bumped up so much from like, I think, don't know, few hundred rank up to rank number 12. Next one is going to be the Steel Dragon, and that's going to be Dialga. So Dialga, yeah, it is so overly used over there, and if you want to play Master League well, really it's a Pokemon that I really recommend getting. Of course, getting it to Best Buddy, using it as level 51 at 4620 CP is definitely more optimal than having it at level 50. Next one is going to be Palkia. Palkia is also a very good option to use. If you guys don't have this, it's okay, because if you already have the Dialga, it's totally fine. Palkia, using it against something like Groudon, in fact Kyogre, well, Palkia do not have to worry about those two Pokemon at all. I would think that Palkia is the best counter against those two Pokemon, especially against Kyogre. Kyogre practically can't do anything against Palkia, man. There's no move that Kyogre has that would do super effective damage to Palkia itself, so that's pretty insane. So next Pokemon is going to be Heatran. I know a lot of people will be scratching their heads right now. Why am I recommending Heatran? Well, it's something that I don't see a lot of people use. It's not ranked very high, but I do use this pretty often also. In fact, when I get faced up against Dialga or in fact Mewtwo, etc., I'm not worried about it. Even when I get faced up against Lugia, you know, it does well against Lugia since it has Stone Edge, which does super effective damage to the flying typing that Lugia has. And if you guys want to try this, go ahead too. Otherwise, don't. Next Pokemon is going to be Giratina in the altered form, and Giratina altered form with Shadow Claw and Shadow Snake definitely is one that is really strong. I think I did not label the one that is Giratina, the other form. Okay, yes, the other one here. So Origin form. I prefer using the Origin form because it hits harder, especially with Shadow Ball instead of Shadow Sneak. But most people will use Ominous Wind instead of Dragon Pulse, but I'm using Dragon Pulse, as sometimes if we do encounter a Pokemon that is a flying and dark typing Pokemon like Yveltal, well, you still have answer against it, even against Snorlax. Alright, so next Pokemon is going to be Cobalion. So Cobalion is a Pokemon that I guess not many people do use it in the Master League. I guess not many people actually have the resources for this Pokemon to power up to level 50, because most people think that this Pokemon was practically useless and did not power this one up to level 50, but I did play pretty hard to actually get the resources, hence why I have one at level 50, but I have not used it yet. But I know it'll be pretty good, especially against Dialga. Next Pokemon is going to be Zekrom. Zekrom being used in the Master League is going to be pretty decent, especially with Dragon Breath and Fusion Bolt. And that's a Pokemon that you can try using, but as for Reshiram, I find that it's just decent, hence why I did not recommend it. As for Landorus wise, yes, it's a Pokemon that is pretty useful with much shot superpower and also Stone Edge. You can always run Earthquake if you want, but most people will actually run superpower and also Stone Edge, especially when you encounter something like a Lugia, you still have answer against it, and even Togekiss. So next Pokemon is going to be Genesect. Very interesting choice, right? Genesect. Well, Genesect, remember, it has a few different drives. The Chill Drive, Shock Drive, Burn Drive, and Dose Drive. The drive that I'm actually recommending to you guys to use is the Chill Drive with the Ice typing Techno Blast. Unfortunately, this particular one is the one that does not have Techno Blast, and it is the drive that is the normal drive, the normal Genesect, it's a Shundo. But the interesting thing, if I were to use an Elite TM on this, alright, the Techno Blast will appear in the normal typing form, which is not what I want to get, so forget it. Alright, next Pokemon we're going to talk about is going to be Yveltal. So Yveltal is a Pokemon that is very tanky in the Master League. I would recommend to get it if you want to try using it against something like Mewtwo or Dialga or in fact Giratina. It basically counters all those three Pokemon that I've just mentioned, and it's insane against Mewtwo. Mewtwo practically can't do anything against unless it has Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, which are rare to see, or Focus Blast, which will still do okay damage against it, as Yveltal is tanky. Next Pokemon is going to be Hoopa. Yes, very interesting, right? Why did I recommend Hoopa? Well, first of all, it is accessible from raids, only from Elite raids during certain periods, so I guess take this at your own decision. But yep, Confusion, Dark Pulse, and also Shadow Ball. I find that it's an okay Pokemon. I wouldn't say it's super duper insane, but it's a Pokemon that I would say it's probably the lowest in terms of the ones that I'm recommending for the Master League. Alright, next one is going to be Zacian. This is definitely going to be the top of the top for the ones that I'm recommending in the Master League, because Zacian is the one that breaks the core so much that it counters Giratina, Dialga, Mewtwo. You say it, you name it, it basically counters everything. Yeah, it's just that insane. Okay, Zacian. Seriously, I'm mixing up the names, guys. But Zacian, alright, if Zacian comes back, which I know it will, I know a lot of people want to raid for it, and hopefully it does, especially in the Crown form, where it will also get a Steel typing Fairy, and Steel typing will be an even more insane typing to have on this Wolfie. Alright, so that is all that I have to talk about in terms of the PvP, legendary and mythical Pokemon that I'd like to share with you guys. Hopefully you guys will have a better understanding on which Pokemon to go after, especially when they do come back in raids, because for them to come back in raids and not knowing which Pokemon to raid for is kind of bad, because if you actually raid for not so important Pokemon, you are technically wasting your time, your resources. But if you're raiding for the ones that are important, then that's when it will be better for you. So that's what I've been doing. What I always tell me and my team basically, is that don't play hard but play smart. Alright, we have to know what's good for us if we want to play in a certain manner. Alright, so that is all from me. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. You guys did definitely remember to leave a like on the video, much appreciated. Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys in the next episode in the next video. Alright, goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.